Remember last year when I made giant solar flowers using Dollar Tree crackled glass solar lights? Well, I found some different ones, so let's make some new ones this year. Hi, loves, it's Lacey, and welcome to our space. So, a lot of people ask me, how did these hold up over the season? And I have to say, the one I just showed you and this one here, they held up really, really well. I used fabric from Joann's, and unfortunately, they're not here anymore, but this crepe-on fabric and the organza were the best fabrics that I used to make these, and they are still in great condition. They survive rain, wind, and snow. But these are the new solar lights that I use to make the new flowers. I have the purple one there in the back, the big one. I also have it in blue. I did buy a set of the small ones, but I didn't make anything with those. And I have this one that looks like a sunflower. And for my fabric, I ended up going to Hobby Lobby. I don't know what this fabric is called, but it was on the regular bolts of fabric, not the home decor fabric that comes in the long, long rolls. And it is nice and shiny. It's kind of a pinky lavender color, and it reminded me of the crepe-on. So what I'm doing here is just folding it and pinning it down. And I'm going to make a template for the petal that I want to make out of just some of the paper like that they wrap things in at like Home Goods and stuff. I always keep some of that around in case I need to use it for crafting. So I made something like a wide mouth at the bottom heart, and I'm just going to pin it to the fabric and cut it out. Now yours can be any size you want, and if you want to make it kind of the size that I did, because I didn't measure, I just folded my fabric. On the long side it was 14 inches, and then on the short side it was almost 11 inches. And all I did was cut them all out together, and I folded it so many times that I could get 8 petals out of it. And I am just now going to cut the bottoms open because a lot of them were folded, and so in order to make it a single petal, I have to cut them apart. Plus, when you fold your fabric, you know, it doesn't fold perfectly, so I had to cut off just a little excess that was in spots. And don't worry if it has folds and stuff in it, because you'll never see it. And once you get it outside, it's going to not be folded anymore. The heat will make it straighten out. Then I took the same pattern and I slightly cut the top of it down so it wasn't so pointy in the middle. And I didn't leave the long part at the bottom. And so this makes the petals a little bit smaller. And again, sometimes when you fold your fabric, it doesn't stay even, and so I just trim the excess of it. They're fine if they're all a different shape. So then next we're going to be using some floral wire. These are 18-inch long, 18 gauge green floral wire pieces that you can get also at Hobby Lobby. They're in the floral section, and I bent it in half and then took the ends and made them come in a bit, and this is going to be the frame for our petals. I'm using E6000 glue to glue them down only on one side, and as you can see, I have a blue silicone mat down. You might want to do that and get something underneath your flower petals that will not stick to the flower petals, and the glue will not go through and get on your work surface. I use a popsicle stick to get off any excess that's like bubbling over, but I really like E6000 for this project because it will not melt or like reactivate in the heat. So if you live in a hot area, you need a strong adhesive because hot glue will not work for this. And then I'm just going to put it down in the middle, kind of. And it doesn't have to be perfect for this either. And use my spatula from the Dollar Tree to scoop it down. And then I'm going to take a long straight one. Like I said, these are 18 inches. And put it in the middle of these two. Again, using a popsicle stick to get off the excess. So it'll look like this. Now I'm going to put a dot of E6000 in the middle, and I'm going to fold over the side so it looks more like a petal, and I'm going to do it on both sides, and that petal will be done being made. All together, I make 16 of these. There's going to be 8 of the larger ones and 8 of the smaller ones. And I'm just going to hold it until it dries and move on to the next one. Then we pulled out our solar light. I told you I had the purple one. This comes with the solar box on the side. And when you turn it on, it lights up in the middle and it makes the light go out to the edges. I think it's really pretty. I wish it lit up a little bit more, like the inside was a little bigger. But this is going to work for what we're doing. And you see it comes in 2 pieces. So now I'm going to show you how I put the petals for this one together. If you saw my last year's, I did a different method because the solar light was different. So I take 2 petals and I slightly put one on top of the other, and I'm going to twist the wires that hang down at the bottom together. Make sure you leave the length on these wires because you're going to need them to adhere them to the actual solar light. Then I'm going to take a third one and put it over the middle one. So you're always going to want this to look like 1 over, 1 under, and then 1 over, 1 under. And I'm going to put together 4 of them all together. Like I said, I have 16, so I'm going to do this in 2 sides. So since this one was over, I tucked that one under. That way it helps the form of it stay together. And don't worry, if they're not staying together perfectly when you put them together like this, don't worry. You can fluff it after you're done with the whole thing. So we're going to have 2 of those with the smaller petals and 2 of them with the bigger petals. And you're going to make them the exact same size. These are the smaller ones I did second. I did have to wait for one to dry because it was coming apart. I had to re-glue it. So there was only 3 on this one, but they each have 4. Then we're going to take our solar light, just the bottom part. Now, I did try to take the purple part off it so I could just use it to judge where I was going to put everything, and you'll see later I take the flower off one, but this you really need to keep the purple part on, and since the solar box is heavy, you're going to probably have to hold on to it. I tried to prop it up, but it didn't really work well for me, and then this is the best way for you guys to see it too. I just wrap that wire around in a circle. That's all I do. Then I take some hot glue and I glue it down. And then I'm going to put the other side of petals on. You do want them to line up against each other, but you don't have to fluff it. Like there's going to be spaces and stuff. You don't have to fluff it at this point, but you do want the wires to line up together. You don't want to put the other one like a third of the way on the side. So then I'm going to wrap that all the way around. And I think I glue it in between 2. I can't remember. But if you miss a spot of gluing it, it doesn't make a difference. And here, I'm sorry my hand's in the way, but I have long nails and I'm not very strong in my hand. So the second wire didn't want to lay down. So I'm just squeezing it so it would lay down. So yeah, I glue this in between 2 on the second wire. You're going to be gluing up the stem part of this flower, but don't worry, you're also going to be taping it, and you'll see that in a second. So now I'm going to show you, this is what it looks like, and you don't see the wires that well, but make sure they're on the underneath, not on the top. And we're now going to put the bigger ones on with the wires underneath, and it's very easy to tell because you folded the edges over. We're going to add this one and try to wrap the wires close to the stem and in the same vicinity that you wrap the other ones. You can be slightly off just long as the 2 match up. And don't worry again about the gaps. I love how this turned out. And I think it's really pretty. And this fabric, I wish I knew the name of it. I don't. But my two Hobby Lobbies that are near me both had it, and it comes in like this pinky purple, also in a bluish green, and then they had a white iridescent. They may carry more colors too, but this is what my stores had, and they still have it this year as well. I actually bought this fabric at the end of last year. So now that I have it all on, I'm gonna go ahead and tape those petals down with some electrical tape. And you can see I leaned it up against my glue gun because it didn't want to set up. Once I'm done with that, I just went in my stash. I have a ton of extra pieces of floral and probably a whole basket full of extra leaves, and so I just pulled these out because they looked nice, and I had a bunch of them. They were on top. I didn't want to dig through everything, and I'm going to cover the back of it. I make sure I put the glue on the very end, and I bend it up the stem some, and I'm using hot glue. It's perfectly fine because I'm going to be using more floral tape and electrical wire or electrical tape to hold it down. So even if it did like reactivate in the sun, I'm in Michigan, the hottest our weather ever gets, and it's very rare even, is maybe 100 degrees. So my ones from last year didn't fall apart at all. And like I said, they've seen rain and wind, and the last one I showed you, it actually got left out in the snow for a while before we put it away, and it's still perfectly fine. So like I said, I'm going to use a little electrical tape, and I'm going to tape that around. And then I also have floral tape. So if you wanted, you could wrap floral tape around it, but you'd have to glue that down with probably some E6000. And this is what it looks like. It's really nice and full. I had it really fluffed, really pretty, and it's windy here. It is also winter here, and we had a couple of warmer days, and like this picture is from a warmer day. I made it a little while ago. We have a ton of snow right now and rain, so anyway, let's move on to the next one. You can see I have another floral stem, a wire stem. These are covered with fabric. It's like a white fabric, and I actually made this for the one that I showed at the beginning last year. This is actually last year's footage because I could not find the footage that I used for this year. I think it was corrupted on my camera. But here's footage of me making bigger ones, and you can see I have the same fabric from Hobby Lobby, and it's like a bluish green iridescent. So how I made these, I took two of the stems and I twisted them together. This footage is sped up. And I just kept twisting it about an inch or so on each side. And then I'm twisting the bottom and I'm measuring them. They don't have to be perfect. I just don't want it way bigger than the other one. And twisting those around. This is how I made my first solar light last year. And it was my favorite one. So I thought I'd go ahead and I do the same thing. And I already did a bunch of these. But I want you to see how I did it. Then I'm going to take E6000 again, and I'm going to put it all the way around the loop here and glue those down. And I'm going to glue them the short way. They look like they're longer than the short way, but as long as the top is glued all the way down, it'll be fine. And these actually fit the piece that I have cut off there. I only bought, I think, a yard of this color. I'm removing the excess too with the popsicle sticks. It's very important on these, especially the white ones. And they're very flexible. You can see it looked wider and I just pushed it together. And they glue down pretty fast with this, but do let them dry all the way or harden all the way. I know some people get anxious when I say dry, but just let the glue harden all the way and cure before you put this outside. You can work with it and cut them out while it's still pliable, but don't put them outside until the glue is dried. Then I did the other side of it and I folded this one over. I like trying different techniques to see what works best and just to get a different look. The ones last year, I only glued it down on one side and I did not have it covered on the wire on both sides. So I want to see what this looked like this year. Then I'm just going to cut it off, and I cut these off each individually, and it doesn't take long. This footage is sped up just a tiny bit. But here's the blue one, same thing. I made smaller ones. This is one stem folded in half, and then the other ones are two stems put together, and they are two-sided with the fabric. So on this one, it's sort of like the one last year. I'm going to glue it down to this stem, and I twist the light around, or I try to see if it'll come off. I don't want it to come off. I would glue it down if it would. And I'm going to be gluing the length of the stem down all the way to the green stem if I can. The green part of the solar light stem. And then I'm going to glue all of them around in between the spaces where the solar light petals hit, and I will show you that in a second. I'm also taking small pieces of electrical tape and I'm sticking it down in between doing some of these because it's going to get a lot of pieces of the floral wire, and it's thicker when it has material on it. I do twist all the floral wires at the bottom, and if you look at these petals, you can see they all look like they got smashed. I did that on purpose. So I made nice rounded ones last year, and I thought those looked cool. So these, I thought, let's make them look different. Flowers always grow differently, and I looked at some of my florals I have here with me, and some of them are bent weird shapes, so I just bent them weird shapes. You can keep yours round and smooth if you decide to make this. And I make sure I twist all the ends so they're nice and tight, and then I start adding them in between the spaces of all of the leaves on the blue light. So you can see they kind of float in between. So I have two more to put on in between the spaces. This one is the same. It has 8 small ones, and then I have 8 big ones. And this is what it looks like. It's not fluffed properly, so it'll look better in a minute when I show it to you outside. But it is pouring rain, and so I couldn't film it outside. But it is lit, and I just stuck it next to me in my craft space. Now, lastly, last year I used this fabric. It's called organza, and it's they have very clear ones, and then they have ones that are more frosted looking white. Well, this one's iridescent and very clear. I just took some cut off from floral stems. These are nowhere near 18 inches long, and I glued them down just on one side, and I'm making long strips that look like feathers. I then took some of that same material and I painted it with some yellow. I don't remember if it was acrylic and chalk paint together. I mixed some, and then I just had some yellow acrylic. So it's a little bit of both. And I glued them on the back just like I did the blue ones. And then I decided to stick yellow ones in between. The yellow was an afterthought. I didn't want at first to have yellow at all. I was just going to do the iridescent, but it didn't look that good to me, so I painted some yellow. And I will tell you this, that I put Mod Podge on top of it, and still in the rain, it all washed out. And so they are all iridescent, and I think I'll try again another time because I have more of these yellow lights. I took off the actual flower part, as you can see. This one came off easy, and because I was doing so many of these, it was so much easier to glue them down. And I put like the iridescent and then the yellow and then the iridescent, so it's every other one. I liked how it looked, but it kind of looked plain. And I mean, it doesn't really look like a real sunflower, as you can see this one right here. So I decided to go ahead and take this sunflower apart and use the petals on our solar light to give it a little extra oomph. And I saved the insides of this because you never know. You know, us crafters, we save everything. So I cut it into quarters to start with, to see if that would be the easiest way to add in some of these petals. I have like a whole bouquet of these sunflowers, so I use more than one of these. And I actually had bigger ones, but I like how this turned out. You'll see in a second. I was winging it. I didn't even know how I wanted to make this flower in particular. So I basically did this fly by the seat of my pants. The other ones, I had an idea when I started the video. So I liked it with the quarters, but then I was like, let's cut this one all into individual little petals, and maybe I'll like it with the petals more. Maybe I'll have more control on where they sit. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to show you, like, this was going to take me all day. I was like, I can put one on each one of these individual petals that it's showing. Nope, I didn't do that. That was a lot. So I did turn around and I used the quarters, like the ones that I cut initially. I did use those little extras. I stuck them in there eventually, but I didn't like how that looked as well as what the quarters look like. So once I decided not to use individuals and I put the quarters in, and I liked how that looked better. I think it turned out really pretty. I put the stem on because you wouldn't be able to get all of these on and then hold it upside down properly to put the stem on and put the leaves on the back and everything. It would just squish it. So even though I'm showing you this so you can see how it looks, I take it back out so I can do the back. And here we are. So I put the leaves on. You guys saw me do that already. I wasn't going to make you sit through that again. And I put the handle on because if not, like I said, you would squish the front of it a great deal. And I'm sorry that the leaves and everything mess it up. But this is what it looks like. These are all three of them. And this took a lot to try to just get them out here. They look better fluffed up. Like, here you go. This looks really, really pretty. I put it on the other side. But I told you, the weather is so bad here right now in Michigan that you don't have a lot of time to film things outside. And here's the blue one. And I really like how it turned out and stuff. The wind was blowing and I was in a hurry, but if you fluff it really, really nice, it's really pretty. I also have the ones I made last year sitting there, but this is what they look like when they're lit up at night. Now this is with a little bit of extra light in my yard. It's my like motion detector light, but this is what it looks like when it's pitch black. You really can't see because in my neighborhood there's no lights. Like we live where there's a lot of lakes and stuff, and there's just no lights unless someone has lights on. It's pitch black. But this is with multiple solar lights on, and so you get more light. And then my neighbor's actual motion detector light came on, so I had enough light that you could actually see it. But I do like the crackled glass ones better, but I still think, especially like at dawn when the lights are going down, the new ones are really pretty. This is like there's no light anywhere. going on. You're just getting the excess light from all the solar lights to see this right now. But they turned out really, really nice. Now, this one still has its color, but it rained shortly after it on it, and so all of the ones that stick out are like pretty much just iridescent. There's a little yellow in there, but it washed away. I don't know how to fix that besides buying actual yellow fabric. And then I had a couple other ones that I tested out, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. They did not work. Starting with this one. This is a shower curtain from Dollar Tree, and I thought shower curtains get wet all the time, so this would be perfect. And I had a smaller crackle glass bulb that hung upside down, so the solar thing is on the top of it. So I was going to hang it so it would light down on you. And it did for the first day or so, but then it molded. It molded so bad, and I don't know why. I know it's on the ground, but it never was on the ground for any time. It's just on the ground so I could show it to you. And you can see the wind is blowing, and I slowed it down. And this is what the back of it looks like. It had a little hook on it, and I hung it from my porch so the light would hit the solar part, and then it would light down. And this is it again on the ground, just to show you that it was really pretty. It had flowers on it and stuff, but it lasted all of like 3 days, and then it was molded. And it was hanging when it was molded. It had bugs in it in the mold, so I took it apart. And then I made another one like the one that I made last year out of the same bulb. This is a much smaller bulb than the ones we had before. They are crackled and they hang upside down. So this one is hanging upside down, and it did fine. It's organza again, and it did perfectly fine. So plastic really doesn't work because it needs to be separate or it gets molded. So here are the first ones that I made again. And I don't know why it's so off. I tried to crop it properly. But this is what they look like if you just set them straight up and down on the ground. The other time I showed it to, they were tipped toward, this is my gazebo. And that's the one hanging down above it. So you can see them really pretty when there's multiple for light. Like the light in the back there is my neighbor was outside with his dog. And we have no light in our backyard. So I enjoy these when it's getting dark or just dark, but when it's pitch black, all you see is little pinpoints. But I still love how they turned out. So that is it for this video. Comment down below, will you make these? Dollar Tree has them right now, and I hear that some Dollar Generals may have them, and maybe even Family Dollar. I know some of the Dollar Generals also have the crackle glass ones. I haven't really been to Dollar Tree to see if they have any of them. I hadn't seen them in a while, but if you find those work perfectly. Also, which one is your favorite? My favorite's still the ones from last year, but I really do love how these are pretty, and they can go in your garden. There's so many colors, they fit anybody's decor. But that is it for this video, and I will catch you guys in my next one. Bye, loves.